Hey, hey, hey. Happy Thursday. Come on in. Pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host, here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, shockingly enough, GamingGang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. Welcome aboard, everybody. Tonight is Thursday, May 15th, 2025. This is live show 1189. Yikes. If you're not overly familiar with the show, let me point out it's super casual around here. Just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news. And then I'll normally pontificate on a topic at hand, or maybe we'll just chat about what's going on in the hobby. I will, from time to time, still share first look videos. It's just not every episode. It's just a little too much work, to be honest. So, just being honest. And tonight, we're going to talk about why small game publishers really do deserve your attention. And sadly, I think sometimes some gamers look down their nose at smaller publishers out there, and they really shouldn't. We're going to talk about that after we tackle the news. Now, of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you will not find here on YouTube. Come on, you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. And of course, if you would like to support the Gaming Gang, we do have a Patreon. There is a link to it down in the show notes. You also have the opportunity, if you want to just make a one-time donation, you can do that too by way of PayPal. Also a link to that, but probably quite a bit more fun for most of you out there. Why not join us over on our Discord server? That's right. The Gaming Gang has a Discord server. You will find the invite link, amazingly enough, in the show notes. And of course, because this is a live stream, that means there is chat available. You have to be a subscriber to the channel for at least 10 whole minutes. No, a lifetime of attention span-wise for some folks out there. Thankfully, not folks who tend to hang out and watch this show, because they just, be like 3 minutes in, they'd be like, hey, I'm changing it. Why am I doing like I'm using a remote? It's the internet. All right, why doesn't this remote work on my laptop? What the hell's going on? Or my phone? Yeah, anyway, so if you're a subscriber and you have been for at least 10 minutes and you want to say howdy, maybe get a question, comment, by all means, chime in. I will do my very best to respond. First out of the gate tonight is our good friend of the show, the Madman, as well as Semper Buffo, Sean O'Donnell, Nathaniel Cares, taking a stab there. And I think, for some strange reason, the name rings a bell, but maybe not. Hey, there's so many people pop in the chat sometimes. If this is your first time here, Nathaniel, welcome aboard. Make yourself comfortable. If not, welcome back. Mike is with us, as is Keith Thulhu, Robert Reynolds. Matthew Perkins is also rounding out chat for the moment. And I will take a wild guess that the lovely and talented Miss Sarah D might also be lurking in the shadows, yet another of our chat moderators, alongside the Madman. She is the one with the glittery banhammer. So you don't want to get banned. Not by Sarah D, because that glitter will never come out, ever. So DB is with us as well. 2. Let's jump on into the news because Outgunned Superheroes is up for crowdfunding. I've got the scoop from Two Little Mice. Outgunned Superheroes is a cinematic tabletop role-playing game inspired by classics of the superhero genre from the unforgettable Spider-Man trilogy. Trilogy? You mean of comics? Because there's also more than 3 Spider-Man movies. To the great crossovers of the MCU all the way through Iron Man, Batman, X-Men, and many others. For some strange reason, it seems like their press releases focusing pretty heavily on movie superheroes. In Outgunned Superheroes, the players take on the roles of, well, you guessed it, superheroes, standing against an evil villain who has become a threat to their city, the world, or the whole universe, maybe even the multiverse. My words, not theirs. Outgunned Superheroes is a genre book in the Outgunned line, and you can play it either standalone or as an expansion for Outgunned. Are you new to Outgunned? Outgunned is a cinematic action RPG inspired by the classics of the action and heist genre, from Die Hard to True Lies, passing through James Bond, Atomic Blonde, Kingsman, Ocean's 11, Hot Fuzz, and the latest John Wick. For some strange reason, and I like Hot Fuzz, and I understand where they're coming from here. That kind of feels like the one entry that doesn't quite fit. In Outgunned, you play as a group of heroes fighting against a villain to try to save the day. Always outnumbered, always outgunned. Outgunned is powered by a full-throttle cinematic system called Director's Cut. The system uses small pools of 6-sided dice to determine the outcome of all tasks that involve risks or danger. When rolling dice in Outgunned, your goal is not to roll the highest or lowest possible total, but to combine as many equal symbols as possible in pairs, 3 of a kind, and so on. Outgunned custom dice can enhance your experience, but are not required to play. Making your hero in Outgunned Superheroes is as quick as it gets. Simply choose a role and a trope and you're ready to go. But don't worry, there'll be plenty of time to further customize your character during the game, and no option or feat will be out of reach, no matter your role. In Outgunned Superheroes, you'll find 12 new roles: the Champion, the Sorcerer, the Shadow. Who knows what evil lurks in the hearts of men? The Shadow knows. That was close. That was close to the radio one. We also got the Armored Hero. No, sorry, I don't have an old-time radio laugh to give you with that. The Tank, the Beast, the Weapon Master, the Psychic, the Blaster, the Speedster, and we started with 10. As of me writing this all down, there are now 2 that are unlocked, making the 12. We've got the Prodigy and the Force Master. Now, there is a short video that is going to provide a little more detail. It's only about, I think it's about a minute in length, but you'll get to see some more artwork.
The world needs you. Out there, it's full of criminal bosses in white suits, of doctors and professors who dress like animals and act as if they have a right to destroy the city in the middle of rush hour, of haywire artificial intelligences who have decided that there is too much humanity in the universe. And this is just the tip of the iceberg. But even in the darkest hour, the good people of the world can always look up to the sky in hope. What is that? A bird? Is it a plane? No, that's you. It's time for you to join the fray. Use your incredible powers to defeat the bad guys and show the universe what you're made of. When the world calls, you are ready to answer, because you are a hero. Outgunned Superheroes, world's mightiest RPG.
This backer kit project is already nearing the $300,000 mark. It launched yesterday. You can reserve a copy of the core book with PDF, Super Dice, and PDF, which is Action Flicks Volume 3, which is on the horizon. For a €69 pledge, you want to just grab those in PDF? You can, and you'll also get a digital adventure. Of course, no dice. You're not going to get those in PDF. For a €29 pledge through June 5th. Now, expected delivery on the digital items is the end of the year, so they're shooting for December. Physical items they're hoping to have out by June 2026. So they're kind of hinting that maybe a little earlier, but that is pretty much what they're shooting as the absolute furthest out. Kind of cool, I must say. Now, I have yet to share my review of Outgunned as well as Outgunned World of Killers, but stay tuned. I will have those on the horizon. I don't think you're going to see them this weekend. I'll tell you what's actually cooking as far as reviews after we ramp up the news here. But I do want to dive in and start taking a peek at Outgunned. Like the artwork. The artwork's pretty cool throughout the entire series of books. Now, I will say, I'm sorry, but I think Two Little Mice are dancing pretty close to that copyright infringement there, especially the pseudo Batman you're looking at right now. I was like, wow, that is really looking like Batman there. And the Ironed Hero that they have, pretty similar to Iron Man, but not quite. But that Batman, boy, I'm telling you. All right, we got a few more people who've popped on into chat. And yes, Sarah D is hanging out with us. W Forge is with us. Coco B, DB is with us, as is Robert Santon popping on in. Very nice. Game Cat has just joined us too. And I see that Sean O'Donnell, Sean O'Donnell's been here since the beginning. So I'm not going to give him a shout out twice. Jeez. DB says, you mean Night Bat? Well, they can't say Man Bat because Man Bat is a villain of Batman's. So yeah, Night Bat, I'm not familiar with anything. So there we go. Now some references to the Tick. Hey, you could actually do that with this game. I mean, yeah, could be. All right, so DB said get Chef as medication. All right, so you may have missed the other night. I had mentioned, because we're not going to be doing like first looks on the live show. I mean, on occasion we will, but that's not going to be the focus. We're just doing the news and then kind of, shooting the shit. Or if I've got a topic like tonight, we'll engage in conversation about that topic. But I also mentioned that I'm going to kind of be a little goofier because I kind of tamp my personality down when I'm doing the show. So, sometimes I come across as being a relatively serious person, which I'm not really. So there's that. Walona's Cave is popping on in. Welcome back again. See, there you go. Sean O'Dell says it's true. They've seen the true Jeff. Well, no, you've not seen the true darkness which lurks within my heart. That's the true Jeff. I always like doing that laugh because I actually do a halfway decent diabolical laugh. I used to do a pretty good Popeye too, but for some reason I just can't anymore. But yeah, I tend to be joking around all the time, goofing off all the time. So, I mean, not like when I'm by myself, because then that would mean I'm insane. But when I'm hanging out with people, yeah. So the man has had some beers with my best friend Elliot Miller and I, so he can attest. Although I will say, It almost came to blows between the Madman and Elliot at Gen Con when we got together for a beer. Elliot started talking about Disney, Walt Disney, and all this other stuff like he always does, because that's all he talks about. And the Madman said, yeah, I don't really like Walt Disney. And Elliot was so shocked, he dropped his 52-ounce mug of beer, shattered all over the place. And there was pushing and shoving. And no, not really. I just said that because I know Elliot watches this show after the fact sometimes. So I'm just trying to see if he's actually going to have watched this episode. Because then if he does, he'll tell me about hearing this story. All right, let's move on to our next news piece, because now out in print and PDF is High Noon at Midnight. And here's the skinny podnas from Monte Cook Games. Explore dusty dimensions where fortunes are decided, one cursed bullet at a time. The outlaw's rotting husk shambles from its grave, seeking vengeance. Better hope your ghost banishing rounds are chambered, partner, because you're riding across a west where hungry tumbleweeds roam, cursed beasts slink through arid canyons, demons and spurs drink whiskey, and justice rides a horse made of hellfire. High Noon at Midnight is your ultimate guide for building, running, and playing cipher system games set in an uncanny world of six-shooters, wanted posters, card games, and smoke-shrouded saloons and showdowns at high noon, all tainted by magic, horror, and even advanced tech. Inside this book, you'll find a plethora of adventure, world building, and GM advice for making your Western campaigns as uncanny, supernatural, and gritty as you'd like them. New Weird West foci, descriptors, and other character options, so you can build a trigger-happy gunslinger who spits fire and lead, or is an alchemist who gambles it all away, or even a slick lawman who hits the saloon. Eerie and terrible creatures such as the nightmarish hellfire steed, dire coyote, flesh mare, and even the reclusive chupacabra. Plus, encounter the just as deadly card shark, black bear, and bounty hunter. Optional rules for integrating card games and using the Midnight deck in your campaign. And you'll also find a complete campaign setting where Western themes meet ancient horrors and magic. The Ghost Range, haunted and demon-plagued, lesson you got a lucky pistol or a death wish. Best stay clear of those parts. Also includes 3 complete adventures: When the Tomb Moon is Full, Showdown in Alchemy Alley, and 5-card Fiasco, as well as 2 cipher shorts to launch your campaign. This 224-page hardcover carries an MSRP of $49.99. If you want to grab the PDF alone, you can do so over at Drive-Thru RPG for $18.99. And I want to say, if you want to get the hardcover and the PDF from Monte Cook Games, it's got a price of, if I remember right, I think it's something along the lines of $55.37. It's kind of odd. Kind of an odd price there. But I gotta say, I like the artwork a lot. One of these days, I should reach out to Monte Cook Games and try to take a peek at some of their stuff. I reviewed, the original Numenera. At the top of my head, I seem to remember like an 8 out of 10. But the title of it was Not Reinventing the Wheel. Because I know when it was coming out, all these people were going, oh, it's so different. It wasn't that different. But I mean, it's good. Don't get me wrong. And then I also reviewed the PDF for the, I think it's now in a second edition with Cipher System, but I did the review when it was first coming out. DB points out Weird Frontiers, which we do have a review of over on The Gaming Gang. I want to say Sammy did that one. Is hernia-inducing. Yeah, it's a huge book, that's for sure. And Frontier Scum is short zombies and dinosaurs. Yeah, Frontier Scum looks pretty interesting. I've shared news of it. In fact, I think I had also think there was a supplement that came out not too long ago, and I shared news for it. So there you got that. Christopher Lundgren's popping on in to join us. Shonal says the Numenera computer role-playing game was pretty neat. Torment Planescape, its spiritual successor. Yes, I did not have an opportunity to check that out, but I did hear good things about it. Funny enough, I think by now you probably all know that I didn't have a lot of experience with like Dungeons and Dragons from about like 83 on. So I don't have a tie with like Planescape. Weirdly enough. And I remember, now I played Baldur's Gate. I've played all the Baldur's Gates. I started playing Planescape, and I don't know, for some reason I couldn't get into it. I think it was the talking skull. I was like, okay. I found it to kind of be a pain in the ass. But we're talking years and years ago. So I don't know. I know I messed with it, but I didn't play much. Matthew Perkins says the Numenera starter kit's been on their shelf for years. They're still intending to try it, though. The black box thing they put out looked so amazing. I just had to give the company a go. And there is still Invisible Sun stuff coming out all the time. In fact, there might even be a new Invisible Sun supplement up for crowdfunding, or it's coming out in stores soon. Thought I somehow stumbled across that someplace. Anyway, like I said, this looks kind of cool. Sean Dahl says, could be hard to play Torment Planescape after how we've been spoiled by graphics. Great game, rough looking like Arcanum of Steamworks. See, I don't mind the top-down graphics and that aren't fantastic. It's okay. I like Divinity. So, I mean, that's top-down. I mean, the reality is, so is Baldur's Gate 3. But I know what Sean's saying. I get what he's saying. All right, moving on to our next news piece. There's currently a quick deal over at Bundle of Holding, which features Arc Dream Publishing's Delta Green and the Impossible Landscapes campaign. And I've got the deets on the deal. Born of the U.S. government's 1928 raid on the degenerate coastal town of Innsmouth, Massachusetts, the covert agency known as Delta Green opposes the forces of darkness with honor, but without glory. Delta Green agents fight to save humanity from Lovecraftian alien horrors, often at a shattering personal cost. Across 4 impossible landscapes, operations spanning 2 decades, the agents of the Delta Green conspiracy encounter a terrifying play that drives people insane. A nightmare asylum where they themselves are patients, a ghost hotel, and beneath, a whisper labyrinth, and even the palace of Ytiro and Dread Carcosa. For just $19.95, you get all 6 titles in the Impossible Collection, which has a retail value of $97 as DRM-free PDFs, including the 368-page Impossible Landscapes campaign book and its companion, Static Protocol. You'll also get the complete Delta Green's Agent's Handbook and Delta Green Handler's Guide core rulebooks, the pre-generated operatives in the agent dossiers, as well as the Delta Green Handler's Screen. Now, this is a quick deal, and it was only supposed to be for a few days, and it's actually been extended a little bit. So these savings will run through May 20th, and Delta Green is excellent. Yes, I know there's a few people in chat who are big fans of Delta Green as well. So if you have been kicking around, maybe checking out Delta Green, I cannot recommend this bundle highly enough, because for $20, you're going to get the 2 core books, plus the massive campaign and some extra goodies. But those are the two big items. And off the top of my head, I think just the Agent's Handbook alone in PDF, I think it's $19.99 over at Drive-Thru RPG. Chardonnay says pre-generated operatives takes a different meaning with Delta Green. Yeah, it's more grist for the mill. DB says DG is boss. Yep, it is. It is excellent. Sadly, I think Art Dream Publishing was disappointed that I didn't give God's Teeth a review score, and I had mentioned that, well, it was really excellently presented, and it certainly did what it was setting out to do. It wasn't something I would run. So I don't really hear much from them anymore. Kind of sad. But it is what it is. Don't know what to tell you. All right, Moonlight Long, now landing in PDF from Boondock RPG Adventures, is the 5th issue of Hard Vacuum. Here's what I know. From the developer of the Scoundrels of Brixton setting, which I have reviewed, really good stuff, comes Hard Vacuum, a new series of action-packed science fiction adventures for use with Cepheus Engine, which also means you could use it with Traveler, and adaptable for different versions of popular D6 role-playing games, such as Traveler. Each short scenario contains enough mayhem, intrigue, and shady characters to challenge and entertain your players. Referees will appreciate the compact format, with every issue easy to digest for use in a one-shot session or even an ongoing campaign with minimal preparation. In issue 5, Hot Comet, a shady merchant captain asks the player characters for help recovering their stolen starship. You guessed it, it's named the Hot Comet. All they need to do is infiltrate an off-limits wilderness sanctuary, assault a private estate that's been taken over by a gang of eco-terrorists, and outwit a paranoid recluse armed with a nuclear bomb. That's it? Hard Vacuum Adventures are currently only available in PDF. So sadly, that means, I won't be doing a review. However, each document is print ready with blank pages for easy printing into a booklet format if you desire. You can score the 16-page Hard Vacuum Bad Comet at Drive-Thru RPG for $5. And as you can see, there is no artwork within, and it does give me kind of the old Traveler Adventure vibe, because you remember those little adventure books, they didn't have artwork either. So like, oh, okay, all right. So it means it's packed with adventure, not artwork. Pretty cool. And I do believe this is a brand new company that has been formed. Well, maybe it's not brand new because this is issue 5 of Hard Vacuum. But the creator of Scoundrels of Brixton has launched a new publishing arm, I guess we'll say. So there you go. Keith Ulu says, what could possibly go wrong? Well, nothing, of course. It's going to be a snap. Agile Monk is with us. Welcome aboard. All right, let's talk about the final news piece, because now available in print and PDF for Amazing Adventures is Rings of the Red God. And I've got the lowdown from Troll Lord Games. Orndul, the Red God, a deity who had been lost to the annals of history, has returned, and more dangerous than ever, with the unveiling of the mighty and terrible Rings of Brass. Rings of the Red God is a sequel to Rise of the Red God, with 3 adventures and source material describing the Rings of Brass on Earth and the terrible power these portals through time and space represent. The adventures herein see our heroes battling to control or destroy these rings, while visiting alien worlds and uncovering conspiracies that could affect all of reality. So is Stephen Chenault put UFOs in this adventure? Because if you are a follower of Troll Lord Games, you know Stephen. You know, Steven's into UFOs. I bet you they're in this. In Oracles of Destiny, the heroes are in a race with a wicked sorcerer to recover an ancient treasure, the Sibylline books. Should this magus get the books first, the world may very well be plunged into the age of darkness and chaos like never before. In Island of the Lost, the plane goes down, vanishing off radar in the South Pacific. When snippets of a distress call are heard from an empty stretch of ocean, our heroes are called in to find the survivors from a heretofore uncharted island. What they discover is that it will take more than a simple life raft to battle cannibalistic savages, gigantic apes, and prehistoric monsters. Well, I guess as well as an erupting supervolcano, which threatens to consume the island. And then in Planet of Darkness, while battling a criminal cult, the heroes find themselves suddenly transported to another world of super science, barbarism, and Nazism. They must they must race against time to stop the Nazis from getting hold of advanced weapons technology while finding a way to get themselves home. I gotta say, these adventures are all suitable for characters of any levels because they can be customized by the Chronicle Keeper, who is the game master in this situation with amazing adventures. Okay, and I'll be very honest, the only thing that's coming from this, as far as the images I'm sharing, is the cover. Because couldn't find anything else. And you know me, I like to share 5 images that give you a feel, right? So this is actually from another Amazing Adventures PDF. So shh, don't tell anybody. This 38-page softcover with PDF carries an MSRP of $12.99. If you want to pick up the PDF alone, you can do so over at Drive-Thru RPG for $6.99. There you have it. That is the news for this evening. And I do see Martin7W has popped on in. Welcome. Good to see you once again. Agile Monk says Amazing Adventures is like Call of Cthulhu and the FGU Daredevils game. Funny enough, the latest print run of Amazing Adventures, they didn't want to say it was a new edition. I made the mistake of calling it a new edition and was corrected by the Troll Lords. Even though it's a little bit different, but still. It's really a pulp. It's a pulp adventure game. It is kind of designed to be, honestly, it's supposed to be kind of a generic kind of just like genre agnostic role-playing game, but it really is focused on pulp adventure, which is fine. Pulp adventure doesn't have to be 1930s. I mean, you can have modern tales that are pulpy. Super easy. Anyway, FGU Aftermath. There you go. I had Aftermath. I never had Daredevils. I saw it. Someone I knew had it because I still remember the cover. The cover was really interesting. It was a pretty cool cover. And normally with FGU, their covers usually had line art. So like Space Opera, Bushido, huge thumbs up on Bushido, classic. But Aftermath also had a line art cover. Daredevils didn't. Daredevils had a painted cover, and I remember it being pretty cool looking. DB says you can still get them from FGU in their OG form. Really? That's interesting. I would have thought, yeah, sure. Whoever's now owning Fantasy Games Unlimited, that is the abbreviation, right? FGU, Fantasy Games Unlimited. I figured you could probably get the PDFs. So, yep. So DB says, yeah, it was trying to look like a pulp cover. Right. They were shooting for the look of a pulp magazine cover. Stray Kismet is with us. Welcome back. Asking me how I am. I am good. Thank you very much. Thank you very kindly. All right, so that was the news tonight. And of course, I did mention Drive-Thru RPG a few times. So don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you're going to go visit Drive-Thru RPG, Storyteller's Vault, Wargame Vault, Dungeon Masters Guild, Drive-Thru Cards, Drive-Thru Fiction, Drive-Thru Comics, any of those One Bookshelf sites, regardless of which one you're going to, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banners, even if it is not for the site you're going to, because it'll still populate our affiliate code. And if you happen to make a purchase at any of those sites, I get a small percentage of that sale. Those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up. Help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, if you like the video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be, I shouldn't say .com, the whole outlet, the Gaming Gang, to be a valuable resource. Hell, if you just like what we do have a Patreon, and you can find the link to the Patreon down in the show notes. And if you want to make a one-time donation, maybe say, buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda, there's a link for PayPal to do that too. Ooh, that's good. That's good. That's good. Trying to do the Johnny Carson. I know, I'm going way back. Yeah. That's good diet soda. Like they used to do on MST3K all the time. I think I mentioned I've been kind of catching up on episodes MST3K. Then I watch one a day. And it's like, wow, I can't believe I didn't see that one. How did I miss that one? Because especially in the early years, I thought it's like, oh yeah, I've seen all of these. No, not all of them, that's for sure. But Joel Hodgson did a good job with doing that. That's good smoke. Doing the Carson thing. Yeah. Anyway, as I mentioned, if you want to make a one-time donation, there's a PayPal link for that as well. And of course, if you'd like to hang with the gang, we now have a Discord server. There's an invite link also in the show notes that you can click on and join us over there. Now, as far as our Patreon, I do want to share a shout out to our members of $10 support and higher. So a big thank you to Tessie Trekkie, Dan Webb, Tier 2 DM, GameCat, and Pete's Draculich, and special tip of the cap to our $25 level supporters, the Madman and Agile Monk, who are both with us in chat this evening. In fact, we've got two or three, I think, Tier 2 DMs not popped up in chat, and Dan Webb, unless Dan Webb's got a nickname, which is very possible. But I could have swore GameCat, as well as, I know Tessie Trekkie and GameCat are here. Thought I saw Pete Strakulich. Maybe not. All right. Yes. W Forge. Sis Boom Ba, the sound an exploding sheep makes. Classic Karnak joke. So yes, Kevin R. Smith is pointing out that the bundle of holding deal is under DG Impossible Landscapes. And I gotta be honest, you tell me if I'm wrong for kind of, thinking this way. So I cut out the part of the bundle of holding where they were talking about, I forget the person's channel. It's been around for like a year. And if it's who I think it is, and I'm pretty positive it is, their channel has, I think it's 15 videos, 14, 15 videos. The person has like 75,000 subscribers, and his videos all pull in over like 100,000 views. And they're long form, which is kind of surprising because I thought nobody likes long videos. So everybody's trying to do short videos, right? But it's like, my God, how does this person have 110,000 views on XYZ video? And then, of course, Bundle of Holdings like, oh, the campaign that this person says is the greatest of all time. I'm like, okay. And then they mention him again. And it's like, and linked to their channel. I'm like, really? Like, come on. I have never seen Bundle of Holding do that. Do they have some sort of a tie-in with this guy? But it's kind of like, yeah, you know, a lot of folks out there reviewed stuff. I'm not just talking about me. I've never seen any referral of them in any sort of Bundle of Holding offers. I know I don't recall ever seeing like Seth Skorkowski mentioned when they're like sharing Traveler stuff, unless maybe they mention him now with the new Traveler bundles that are up there. I don't know. I just thought it was weird. It's like, wow. It's like, okay. Not used to seeing that. Anyway, that's kind of like, it's a little strange. Kevin R. Smith says, you're right. Guy has a grand total of 11 videos. That includes a short channel intro video. I have not watched their videos. So I do not, I mean, they may be awesome. They might be fantastic. What I don't get is how in the world do they have 75,000 subs? And I'm not accusing anybody of anything, but we already know Dicebreaker paid for subs and views when they first came out. You didn't know that? Now, I'm not saying that this person did that, but it, you know, and like I said, this stuff might be great. And they're not like 5-minute videos either. They're long videos, and it looks like there's production quality with these videos. So I'm not knocking this person's outlet at all. I just find it weird that somebody with, as Kevin R. Smith says, 11 videos has that many people and those many views. So they started with Shut Up and Sit Down. Is that where I've seen them? That's got to be it. Thank you, Nathaniel. I was going to say, because I saw, like I said, I didn't watch the videos. I don't have time for any of that. That's why I don't, when I go to Page, the Philadelphia area gaming expo in January, and there's like all these other content creators there, I don't know the vast majority who they even are. So I'm going to feel like a real idiot. Oh, hey. Oh, yeah, we're the most popular XYZ outlet out there. Oh, okay. I feel like, I don't know. Because I don't. Anyway. So Chris Leonard's talking about Osric 3.0 again. I already gave it news, Chris. Got a news piece. Let it go. Chris Leonard says they forget who asked last night who's putting out the new Osric 3.0. No one, Chris. No one asked. Hey, well, you know, Stephen from Roll for Combat's not here. I got to pick on somebody. See, Chris, that's what happens. Stephen's not here. You have to face the music. Yes, it is Mythmere Games. It is Matt Finch's company, which publishes Swords and Wizardry. Is it? It's not Revived, is it? Is that the new? I know it's not Complete. Complete was a previous print run. Maybe it is. Maybe it is Swords and Wizardry, I should say, revised. which I reviewed the original Swords and Wizardry, and it's very good. It is very good. It is built on old original D&D, but it's also got some flavor and such from BX and AD&D. So, Kevin R. Smith says, if Steven from Roll for Combat's there, you could ask him. He knows everybody, or at least he says he knows everybody. Yeah. Who just mentioned Tome of Adventure Design? Yes, WForge is correct. They also do isn't it called the Namicon? It's another one. DB says I need to say Meek Big and then do the shadow laugh before intermission. Okay. We got the Meek Big. So it's Swords and Wizardry Complete Revised. Okay, that's a little too much. Gonna drop the complete. Just use the revised. That'd have been fine. DB says they like the designer notes in Swords and Wizardry. I interviewed Matt Finch I don't want to say way back in the day. I was here. I don't mean on the planet. I mean here in Yorkville, Illinois. Because, of course, if you didn't know, I started the gaming gang when I lived out in Arizona. And I also lived in Indiana during the period of the gaming gang, too. So I got to say, it's got to be probably about 6 years. Probably about 6 years since I interviewed him. He was real nice. Okay. Chris Leonard says, it's okay. They're a CM, so they're used to it. The new Osric's going to be 3 separate hardcover books, dice set, and GM screen. Very different format. I got to be honest. I don't know if I'm excited that it's going to be 3 books. Chris said they run the prior version of Swords and Wizardry, the blue cover edition. That's what that one, if it's complete, that's the one I reviewed. So, but, yeah, I don't know. I'm not, see, one of the selling points for people with Osric was it was all in one book. So they had the rules, they had monsters, they had the game master info, like the game master's guide, dungeon master's guide kind of thing. It was all in one volume. Now putting it out in 3 books kind of defeats that purpose. To me, it actually doesn't separate them from the pack anymore as far as OSR games go. Because, like I said, because people would be like, oh, hey, so what's a good like retro clone of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons? And my go-to answer had always been Osric. But the reality is that might not be the case anymore. I would maybe point people towards For Gold and Glory. And yes, I do realize that it is, truly 2nd edition Dungeons and Dragons. But the reality is mechanically, from what I understand, now remember, I'm going to mention this again. As far as Dungeons and Dragons goes, after about 1983, I was running Call of Cthulhu. I was playing other games. Didn't find myself playing a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. And then I would say probably from 1985, I didn't play forever. So, but I lost my train of thought. See, that's what happens when you get old. Start losing your train of thought. Plus, I saw some stuff pop up in chat. I was like, wait, what? But, I was going to say, I've always been told, see, I figured it out. I'm not lost. I'm not wandering. Like, the hell was I just saying 2 minutes ago, man? I was like, oh, look, a bird. From what I had been told, and from my understanding from listening to some audiobooks about the history of Dungeons and Dragons and TSR, mechanically, second edition Dungeons and Dragons isn't that different than first edition. Mechanically, there were a lot of like monsters and setting things that changed. Like, what was it? They didn't have devils and demons. I know they didn't have, I think they got rid of devils. But, you know. But for Golden Glory, to my knowledge, is a single volume. Everything's in a single volume. Now, of course, it's different when you're talking a PDF compared to a physical book. Yes, I do understand. A lot of people don't want a huge physical book that's 600 pages long. I completely get that. It's a little difficult to use at the table, especially when you're first getting used to the game. I don't know. So I liked Osric. I reviewed it. I thought it was pretty cool. Like I said, if you were looking for the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons experience without the high Gygaxian language and kind of the shotgun approach, especially of the Dungeon Master's Guide, then by all means, I certainly recommended it. I thought it was really nicely done. The new edition, I mean, I'd be more than happy to take a peek at it. I really would. Because like I said, I like Swords and Wizardry quite a lot. Matt Finch, very nice person from my experience with him. And Mythmere does release some pretty cool stuff. Okay. So we are going to get into tonight's topic, why small game designers deserve your attention, in just a few moments. But first, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building. Every item a fresh, appetizing taste treat.
Some folks don't believe the super fruitiness of Bonkers fruit candy. They learn soon enough. Some folks think Bonkers is gum. They know it's candy now. With its extra fruity inside, Bonkers is so super fruity. Whoops!
Bonkers. Bonks you out.
Some candy!
Artificially flavored.
Look out, here comes my trainload of Wilkins coffee.
Why would you want a whole trainload?
I like Wilkins.
When there is crime in society, there is no justice.
As
As a city, we continue to grow. 73 citizen riots.
Come and get us! Throw down your weapons and prepare to be judged! Judge this!
Court's adjourned.
Red, you're a legend. You were my finest student.
Dredd. Dredd!
You're under arrest.
What's the charge?
Murder.
The evidence has been falsified!
Guilty as charged.
I never broke the law! I am the law!
Chaos.
The sentence shall be life imprisonment.
I'm the chaos. Dredd?
Let me crush him, Paul!
Excuse me? We're not together.
It's not for this council to play God!
Who says politics is boring? We're going to war.
You're alone! Born to be with Drake!
You gotta let me coming. I'll be the judge of that.
Look out!
I went and saw Judge Dredd with Elliot Miller, and Elliot was not really overly familiar with the Judge Dredd comic, which I had read loads of, especially when First Comics did American reprints of it when I was in high school. So it started off, and I'm like, hey, yeah, it's pretty good. It's all right. You know, I mean, and, you know, the jawline with the helmet with Stallone, I was like, oh, okay, all right. Okay. And then minutes into the movie and he takes his helmet off. No joke. I said this out loud and I didn't yell it. I said it out loud. I was like, what the fuck? I was like, are you kidding me? Joe Dredd does not take his helmet off ever. Now, as far as I know, and I haven't read every single Judge Dredd comic that's ever come out, but I don't think they have ever shown Joe Dredd's face. They've shown the back of his head. I remember issues where, because it's not like he goes home and lives with the helmet on. But yeah, I was like, oh, that was awful. Better with Bacon is with us, as is Pete's Draculich. James Mitchell is hanging out with us. It's on the subject of smaller publishers and Judge Dredd. Does anyone have an opinion on EN Publishing's 2000 AD? I shared news of it. That's all I can tell you. I do understand they have quite a few splat books for it. Last I saw, I don't know if they still have the license. They might. They might still have it. But I don't, you know, it's kind of strange because I stumble across stuff on EN World all the time. And I can't recall seeing anything recently that's new for it. So I don't know. Better with Bacon says, if we could have a Dredd film with Urban's Dredd in the setting from Stallone's, we'd have a perfect Dredd film. Yeah, you know, I liked the most recent Judge Dredd. But yeah, it was too similar to that one independent movie. I forget, something The Block. But yeah, but The other thing about the Stallone Dread movie is when they end up out in the wasteland, they start lifting parts from, oh God, is it the blasted Earth? I think the story arc is called the Blasted Earth. Yeah. Yes. Keith Ola says attack the block. Yes, that was it. Yeah, I think the story arc is called the Blasted Earth, and that's where some of the characters that you see in the movie that attack Dredd and Rob Schneider are from. And I was like, what the hell, man? Why did you just go with the storyline that you're lifting things from rather than this, okay, we're framing Dredd and blah, blah, blah. So I have one last funny little side note for you. I thought it was kind of interesting that Rob Schneider got billing over Max von Sydow in that trailer. And my brother used to be friends with Rob Schneider. Pretty damn good friends. They would actually, because my brother lived out in LA for a while. And it was probably around this time that Judge Dredd came out. And they would actually go hang out at the movies. Kind of interesting. Yes. All right. Better with Bacon says, I'd love a Judge Dredd movie with the Dark Judges, or at least Judge Death. That would be pretty cool. I got to say, the comic book is not necessarily everyone's cup of tea, but the Brian Ballard artwork, the comics that he did the artwork, excellent. And those storylines are pretty damn good too. So tonight we are going to talk about why small game publishers deserve your attention, especially now more than ever. And I think a lot of times people not a lot, but there are gamers out there who look down their nose or poo-poo games, adventures, third-party products that come from a smaller publisher for absolutely no reason. Like, I know there are people out there who play Dungeons and Dragons, and it's only D&D. And if it's anything other than D&D, even if it's stuff for D&D from a third party that's not like Roll for Combat or Cobalt Press or something like that, they're like, oh, no, absolutely not. Not going to touch it. But the thing is, if you don't explore what's out there in the hobby, there's some negative aspects that are going to come about because of that. So, number one, if somebody creates something that's pretty cool, nobody knows about it, nobody looks into it, nobody buys it, well, that creator's probably not going to ever make anything again, right? Because, or they'll throw their hat in the ring another time. But if people don't jump aboard and at least give it a try, kick the tires on it, then of course, what's the point of trying to create content, right? There are a lot of, I want to say, bigger companies. Now, if we're talking only role-playing games, the big company out there is, of course, Wizards of the Coast. And just about everybody else could be considered a small publisher, but I won't. So the Paizo Inks, the Chaosium Inks, the Monte Cook Games, although I think Monte Cook's probably a little closer to a small publisher. I don't mean any kind of insult by saying a small publisher. What I'm saying is it's a publisher that doesn't crank out 1 million copies of a book, which I wouldn't think anybody does, but they don't crank out 25,000 copies of a book. They don't crank out 25,000 copies of a board game. Maybe it's a 1,200 print run, or maybe it's a 3,000 copy print run. Those are pretty small. Although the reality is the average board game print run now might be a little different these days, but about 4 years ago, the average print run was about 5,000 copies. But you also got to keep in mind that takes into account all the copies of Wingspan, all the copies of like Gloomhaven. So, so if something got 1 million copies printed up, just imagine what that does to the average print run, right? So, Clantos is with us in chat. Sorry, I saw you had popped in. I didn't say hello to you. Sorry about being a little late on that. So your video on why you should play Castles and Crusades is why I got into Castles and Crusades. I started buying from Troll Lord Games. Right. Troll Lord Games, they are a small publisher. You might not think so. They might not think so. But the reality is they are. They're a small publisher. Even look at like Exalted Funeral. And Exalted Funeral is essentially a publishing house. And if you have not checked out my review of Monty Python's co-curricular medieval reenactment program, say that 5 times fast and try to remember it off, just by all means, check out my review. I was very pleasantly surprised that there is legitimately a game there. May not necessarily be your cup of tea, but there is a game there. So even with Exalted Funeral, you have to keep in mind, Exalted Funeral publishes stuff from other creators. So a lot of stuff that comes out is not from Exalted Funeral. So as far as like Old School Essentials or Dolmenwood, whenever that, actually finally arrives in retail, that's Necrotic Gnome available through Exalted Funeral here in the United States. We also have The Molt, which you'll see a review of shortly. That's another company that the book is published through Exalted Funeral. So Land of Eam, another example. Actually, Monty Python. That's Creative Crowbar by way of Exalted Funeral. So don't think, Exalted Funeral, they're a big publisher, but they're publishing small creators, smaller design houses and things like that. Chris Lundgren says, okay, Jeff, I bought Monty Python. Pete Dracklitz says, Planet X Games is dope. Don't they do Dungeon Crawl Classics, Mutant Crawl Classic stuff? Pete Dracklitz says, Lamentations of the Flame Princess is small, but a giant in gaming. Sorry, Pete, I got to disagree with you. As far as gaming goes, they're also a small fry. And I'll explain why. And I am not knocking James Raggy or anything like that. You don't have a lot of people playing Lamentations of the Flame Princess. You just don't. There are various websites that have run polls on, what OSR role-playing game do you play? Or what fantasy role-playing game do you play? And it's almost never on it. And it's always like way down the list if it is. So now, that's not to say that they don't have stuff that's well regarded. They also have some stuff that's really pretty fucked up too. So it's kind of like, okay, all right. Chris Lundgren, Frog God Games, are they small? Yes. Most definitely. Clantos says, basic fantasy role-playing game, small publisher. Chris Gonnerman, isn't even really a publisher, as Kevin R. Smith points out. It's a nonprofit. And I would take a guess that there are more copies of Basic Fantasy in people's hands than core books for Lamentations of the Flame Princess. That would be a guess. Kevin R. Smith pointing out pretty much everything OSR is going to be a small publisher. Yeah, I would say that's going to track. Yeah, I would definitely say so. Omerol is with us in chat. I mean, how many publishers make a print run over 1,000, let alone 5,000 for a product? Very few. I'll tell you right now, I highly doubt Paizo Inc. is doing a run of, say, 5,000 for their adventure path chapters. Their core books, yeah, I would think so. I don't know. I've never tried to find out the size of the print runs over at Paizo Inc. Paizo Inc. is kind of a tricky company. Always been good to me. When Aaron was their marketing guy, he was always like emailing me and stuff like that, and back and forth and stuff. But after he left, I mean, they still send me all their stuff, but we've talked about this before. It's kind of like they never share any coverage, any like review videos, anything like that. And as Stephen from Roll for Combat pointed out, he was hanging out one day when I mentioned that. He said they don't even share stuff, video and stuff from him. And he's a third-party publisher publishing Pathfinder stuff. So I was like, oh, okay. So there's conversation about various different small publishers here. So really, the reality is anybody other than Wizards of the Coast we could consider to be a small publisher, a small game publisher. As far as like tabletop games, almost every tabletop gaming company outside of the Stone Mirror Games and Fantasy Flight Games, which Fantasy Flight doesn't really release much anymore. It's most of their stuff is through the offshoot companies that they farmed everything out through Asmodee. But those still have pretty large print runs, like when they do their Arkham Horror and stuff like that. But like even GMT Games, if you're a wargamer, I mean, GMT is pretty much like the pinnacle of wargaming. And their print runs, I would be shocked if they had more than 2 titles, maybe 3 a year that got more than 2,000 copies printed in the first run. Now, of course, if it's something that they're doing a reprint of, like, Twilight Struggle, yeah, okay, maybe it's a bit bigger than that. But I would guess for GMT, most of their print runs on something that got, let's say, 700 orders on their P500, we're probably looking at 1,500 in a print run. That'd be a fairly decent guess. I got to say, as far as like board game companies, they actually don't really start making serious profits on their games until they go for another print run, because so much of the initial print run, the production costs are eaten up by, the tooling and all this other stuff. And once that's already done and they're going to do another print run, those costs don't have to be paid any longer. So Martin 7W, Free League Publishing, Cubicle 7, Modifius, all licensing some big IPs, but they are still small. Yes. Completely agree with you. Completely agree with you. Chris Leonard asks, what are some smaller tabletop miniatures games that get overlooked that we should support? Can't tell you. I don't know. I don't have enough experience with miniatures these days. Back in the day, 2000, 1990s, I could have probably told you. Nowadays, nope, no idea. I don't play any minis games. I would like to. Of course, I would absolutely love to. I might even be talking to my nephew about trying out War Master. Because it looks like you can get I think they're 10 millimeter troops in that at a halfway decent price for the armies in that. And I think we'd get a kick out of painting those up together. But so yeah, sorry, Chris, I can't point you. I don't want to say, oh well, yeah, by all means, you should check out Malifaux or I mean, obviously we've got all the Games Workshop stuff, but that's what's got all the eyes on it. I did review the first edition of Bolt Action way back in the day, and I liked it from Warlord Games. And at that time, now this I was living out in Arizona, so this is a while back. This is not long after we started the gaming gang. I gotta say, I thought the miniatures price-wise were very reasonable, especially compared to, say, like Games Workshop. I always liked Reaper Miniatures. Reaper Miniatures used to send me stuff from time to time. I always thought that was very cool. And they had very nice sculpts. And I am one of those kind of people that I like to embrace games that are like miniature agnostic. So I kind of like that. Klantos asks, does White Wolf still publish Vampire the Masquerade and Werewolf? That's a weird, tricky question. Because as Kevin R. Smith points out, original White Wolf no longer exists. And he's not too sure what happened with the new White Wolf that spun up about 15 years ago, maybe 20 years ago. I'm with you on that, Kevin. That's weird. It's kind of weird because it's like some World of Darkness stuff comes out from one publisher and some comes out from another publisher. And, in my opinion, back in the day, the original White Wolf kind of shot themselves in the foot when they started launching all of these different role-playing games that were tied in to Vampire the Masquerade. And then they started doing like Dark Ages, Vampire. It's oversaturated the market. Plus, it also didn't help that the original creator passed away. So that didn't help White Wolf at all. VS is with us. Says, they found the less the game needs materially to work, the better it usually is to actually play. I will agree with you on that. Robert Reynolds says they like Blood and Valor, World War I, 28 millimeter. Cool. I would guess we're looking at skirmish level then. W. Forge was asking, what about Paizo? They put out stuff monthly. I don't know if W. Forge is asking, is Paizo a small publisher? Because they really are. I mean, they essentially are. See, there's a misconception. And there are a lot of gamers who have been involved in the hobby for a very, very long time who are also under this misconception that, publishing game titles, board games, and role-playing games is real profitable. It's not. It is not at all. The margins for board games and role-playing games are pretty slim. That's why now I know what's going on with the tariffs. From one day to the next, it's something different. And I know I had mentioned this too before, that I thought some companies were kind of panicking a little ahead of the curve, but it just goes to show you how precarious, I'm trying to find a word I wanted to use, most game publishers' find themselves, what precarious situations tabletop gaming publishers find themselves in. So bigger companies, Wizards of the Coast, Hasbro, can they absorb tariffs? Sure. Obviously enough. W Forces Jeff's doing a Lewis Black impression. I like Lewis Black. Okay, I take that back. I have seen some of his like podcasts recently, and I don't know. He seems, I mean, he's always cranky, but he seems crankier than usual. Not as funny, more just bitching. But his when he reads people's complaints and that after he does his shows, that stuff's pretty funny. Yeah. What is it? Time to pay the rent or something like that. But like I said, could Wizard of the Coast, could Hasbro, weather tariffs? Yeah, they could. But it would take a huge chunk out of their profits. So, Chris Lundgren asks, you think during the pause in tariffs, there's going to be a surge in getting the games in a port in stores? I don't know. I can tell you that I would have the feeling, because you got to realize too, there is a set amount of shipping that is available. So supply demand doesn't matter. You still have a certain amount of shipping available. So I would take a guess that board games and stuff like that are going to be down on the list of important items getting on to those ships. That would be my guess. Is that going to happen? I don't know. But I can I get. So VS says inflation is pretty high already. I'm assuming that's what the P stands for. I think most people are going to save and cut luxuries. We're on the same wavelength. I talked about that before, that it wasn't just going to be the tariffs and that were going to hurt the hobby. And a lot of people who were, throwing out all these videos about gaming and the tariffs and stuff like that. One thing that I understand they weren't talking about they were all talking about the increase in the price of the games and increase in the cost to actually get them here and things like that. But I guess no one was talking about how the cost of living was going to go up. And I mentioned that when we did a show about the tariffs, that was something that I thought was going to have a far more negative impact on the hobby than the tariffs, because the tariffs, like I said, one day it's one thing, next day it's something else. You don't know. But I also pointed out, I went to Walmart to pick up some groceries and that. This was last Friday before that. And I had already noticed the prices had gone up, but I thought, okay, I'm going to see how much they've gone up. Because there's certain things I pick up all the time and I know how much they are. And it was 20 to 22%. And it was like across the board. And then I see today on the national news, Walmart has announced that prices are going to go up the end of the month because of tariffs. I thought, well, shit. They already went up 20 to 22%. That wasn't the tariffs? So it's like, well. Omanel says inflation has been low, thank God, compared to a few games. Their rent for the first time leveled off since 2019. That's nice. Very cool. Chris Leonard says they live about 30 minutes from the port of Long Beach. They were told by a friend that works at the ports. There are about 40 ships anchored offshore and now all docked, unloading like crazy. Oh yeah, I would assume that. But I'm also going to have to assume that they're probably not filled to the brim. Robert Santon says they just backed Raybox Games' Cats of Mont St. Michael and Open Owl Studios' Storyfold Wildwoods. Tessie Trekkie says once they go up, they likely don't go down again if the tariffs go bye-bye. Yep, that is something else that's important to keep in mind. When we have tariffs and the prices go up and the tariffs are lifted, the prices do not come down. Or if they do come down, they come down just a little bit, but they don't come down to the pre-tariff levels. So I don't want this to be another video where we're talking about, oh, things are going to get tough for the tabletop gaming industry. Because we already talked about that. But that also leads us back to why small publishers deserve your attention. Because there are small publishers out there who are putting out some really cool stuff. And I forget who it was in chat the other day had asked something along the lines of, hey, Jeff, you should share more coverage of, independent games, which I do all the time. That's why I was like, seriously? It's like, how much can I share? Give you 5 news pieces. Normally out of those 5 news pieces, 2, maybe 3 are from companies that most of you are not familiar with. So I was kind of like, yeah, what the hell is that? Give some great examples. This is all just very recent stuff that I have covered, such as Tales of Argosa. Yes. The second edition, really, of Low Fantasy Gaming. Really cool. If you have not checked out my review, by all means, take a peek. Now I can't remember the publisher's name. Damn it. Pickpocket Press. I'm sitting there because, okay, so the reason why I couldn't remember is because Pickpocket Press's website address is Low Fantasy Gaming. It's like, oh, okay. So, Joseph Purdy says M2 money supply is at an all-time high. Price of gold is up 31.81% over what it was last year. Well, thank God I have tons of gold available to me. Yes. Money supply being at an all-time high doesn't necessarily put it in everyone's pockets either. So, just got to say. Anyways, so I can take a guess that the coverage Tales of Argosa has gotten from the gaming gang has helped them out as far as sales, because I know a few of you out there, maybe you're not necessarily watching live, but some folks out there watching on Memorex purchased Tales of Argosa because of the review that I shared. It's like this came up in conversation last night. Grit. Very cool little game available. It's print on demand from Drive-Thru RPG. And this is from Gnomebot Studios. And once again, I would take a guess that the coverage Grit has gotten from the gaming gang, both by way of a news piece and review, has been beneficial to Gnomebot Studios. And of course, people talk about this all the time. We've got Trollord Games. They are a small publisher. They're a fairly mighty publisher, but they are a small publisher. And I know the coverage that they've gotten from the gaming gang has helped them sales-wise, because I am a firm believer of helping to support the small creators out there. I've always been of this state of mind. That's why, a lot of times people will ask in chat, hey, did Jeff cover XYZ Kickstarter? And maybe it's from a pretty big company. And I hadn't up to that point, simply because they probably didn't need my coverage. It's like I used to tell people all the time when they were like, oh, you guys don't do enough reviews of Fantasy Flight Games. And I had already said Fantasy Flight Games was a bear to try to get review copies out of. They would load you up with as much news as you could possibly tolerate from them. And they loved the fact that we shared it all the time. But to get review copies, it was not easy. And on top of that, it was like, okay, you got a new Fantasy Flight game coming out, and there's already 30 reviews out there. Does Fantasy Flight Games really need a review from Elliot or myself or James, who used to be one of our contributors? No. But a company like Victory Point Games back in the day, the coverage they got from the gaming gang and the coverage from the reviews and that really helped put them on the map. So, I mean, you got to also keep in mind that the big, I don't want to say advancements, because that sounds weird. The advancements in gaming. Oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness we're now using 3 8-sided dice. But the really interesting designs and adventures and things that just aren't the same old aren't coming from Wizards of the Coast. And let's be honest, it's not coming from Paizo Inc. either. Paizo Inc. it's pretty cookie cutter, right? I'm not saying it's bad. I mean, if you purchase something from Paizo Inc., like Pathfinder 2nd edition, the upcoming Starfinder 2nd edition, you have a pretty good idea what you're getting. So that's fine. I mean, they're not like pushing the envelope by any stretch. But the creators and the publishers that are all small. They really are. So, and even the publishers that you might think are big aren't. Like already pointed out in chat, like Modifius, Free League Publishing. Free League Publishing has grown so much. And I say this from time to time that I think, I think they might have outgrown their coverage, outkicked their coverage a little bit. I remember it wasn't that long ago that I was at Gen Con, covering Gen Con, and I interviewed Free League Publishing, and their exhibit area was the size of these 2 bookshelves behind me, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little wider than the screen you're seeing right now. That was it. And I'm trying to remember what the game was that they had. It wasn't Tales from the Loop. Can't remember. And then it was funny, 2 years later, I did an interview, and I think it was, if I remember right, I think it might have been with Tomas. No, it wasn't. Tomas wasn't there. It was one of their people who lives in the U.S. did an interview, and they had this really big exhibit area, which has only gotten bigger. And that was when I got the review copy of Twilight 2000. And I was the only person in the United States who had a copy of that. Omanal says, Symbaroum, Coriolis, or Forbidden Lands. No, this was actually before that. Yeah, like I said, I'm trying to remember what it was. Thank you. It was Mutineer Zero. Thank you, Nathaniel. That's what they were there with. was Mutant Year Zero. And if I remember correctly, I don't even know if they had product, because I didn't actually do a recorded interview. I was just kind of talking with them in that. But yes, it was Mutant Year Zero. That's what it was. Pete Straklich, Lamentations of the Flame Princess is all about the adventures, some sick legendary adventures and true gems like Vordheim and Veins of the Earth prized in their collection. Sweet. Nice. Only thing I was saying was Lamentations of the Flame Princess is not as popular a game as some people think. And some of it is because of some of the adventures people have heard stuff about. Some of it is because of James Raggy, if that's how it's pronounced. I don't know. Kevin R. Smith says, I remember that. I remember being in chat and assuring Jeff I didn't have a grudge because he had Twilight 2000 while he was waiting for his Kickstarter copy. Yeah, it was funny. And I was sworn to secrecy by Free League Publishing when I was at their booth. Well, like exhibit area, it wasn't a booth. That I was not going to reveal that I had it in my possession while Gen Con was going on. I was like, yeah, that's fine. And I understand it. I understand. But like Kevin Hartman is like, yeah, he was saying, I don't have a grudge. Got to remember, it was a copy that was given to a reviewer. They were not selling it at Gen Con. See, that's different. And they were only giving it to me kind of as a thank you for my coverage of Free League Publishing, because the Gaming Gang was one of the earlier outlets to share a lot of stuff from Free League Publishing. So that's pretty much it. But yeah, if Free League Publishing had been there at Gen Con selling Twilight 2000 and the Kickstarter backers hadn't gotten it yet, you'd have heard about it from me. Kevin R. Smith says they think Lamentations of the Flame Princess become less popular over the last, say, 10 years because of the content and the reputation of one of the major third-party creators. I wouldn't say he was a third-party creator necessarily. I think he had some input into the core book. I don't know for sure. I know who Kevin's talking about. I know most of you out there are like, not something we want to rehash again. Omanel says, I think a lot of OSE, Hyperborea, etc. to compete with Lamentations of the Flame Princess. You know, I think we're going to wrap up pretty soon because this show's going pretty long. I think part of it is there was no magic book for Lamentations. There was really no bestiary, and I get it. It was like, oh, you could use any, monster manual you want or anything like that. And I understand that. But still, when a game doesn't have that kind of leads people to think, I don't know, is it complete? Kevin also points out, yeah, it took forever to write his revised GM's guide. That was another one that I was like. Nathaniel asks, have I heard of Black Sword Hack? Yes. Have you seen my video? Yes, it has real Elric vibes. It does. It does. Trying to remember. I'm pretty sure it got a review. Or did it get a first look? See, I've made the mistake of trying to get people involved with the Gaming Gang. And on occasion, I have had people reach out and they've shared videos with me, and it's like, oh, okay, all right, yeah, cool. And I'll send some stuff to them to review, to do videos of, and never get it back and never get the videos. That's happened a couple of times until I finally learned my lesson. It was like, no, I'm happy with contributors reviewing PDFs and stuff like that. That is A-okay. But no, I'm not. But thankfully, not for the small publishers, but thankfully it wasn't stuff from like companies that I'm really tight with, like Typical 7 Games, Free League Publishing, Chaosium Inc. All these people who work there are like, what is he talking about? He's tight with us. We hate that guy. Can't stand that guy. But like Cobalt Press, stuff like that, right? Companies that, if they release something, you're going to see some sort of coverage, some sort of video coverage of them. Thankfully, it wasn't any of that got sent out. It was smaller, sort of, little A5s and stuff like that. But still, I mean, it was like, then I had to look like an idiot and email these people and say, sorry. But anyway, Nathaniel says, oh, they have a new version. No, I didn't know that. Actually, maybe I did. Maybe I shared a Kickstarter announcement of it. I don't recall. All right. Anybody got one last question or anything they want to hit me up with? Hopefully not something that's going to take 25 minutes to answer. Well, let's move on to chapter 3. And Clonto says, I thought you just did a first look at it. Right. And then I sent it out. So, yeah. Oh, so if you're relatively new to the gaming gang, it's probably important for you to know that I don't like to do negative reviews. I used to do them. Especially when I did written reviews, and there were some things I savaged pretty good, but I just don't want to deal with that unless it is something like from Wizards of the Coast. It's like from Dungeons and Dragons or Paizo Inc. I think those companies are big enough to have a negative review. And normally, if I were to do a negative review, I was in the minority anyway. But for the most part, if you see me do a first look video and 6 months later you have not seen a review, that is an indication that I did not like the product. Unless it was like epic encounters, like the miniatures and stuff. We looked at the miniatures, right? Nobody cares about the little adventure. And it's not even an adventure, it's an encounter. A couple of encounters with a little map. People want to see the minis. So I didn't do review videos of that because we already saw it. And I'm not one of these people where it's like, just like I could take the latest Dungeons and Dragons book and review it by way of like 6 or 7 videos. Well, this chapter here, let me tell you, but no, I don't do that. It's like, this is the product. This is the item. Here's the review. Contos is reminding people it's Black Sword Hack. W4 asks, what is the answer to the universe? Isn't it? It's a 24. It's been so long. It has been so long. Mark Hawkswell asks, has anyone checked out the Shadow Hack Kickstarter? Not sure what to think about it. There is also another Kickstarter for Shadow Dark. It's a Wild West, but it's kind of like a Deadlands, or like we were talking about earlier in the news section, the High Noon at Midnight for the Cypher system from Monte Cook Games. So it's kind of a Weird West kind of thing. Dan Kapersky is joining us. Welcome. I think it might be a first-time visit from Dan, or I'm just not remembering you've been here before. I'm sorry. Says, I'm glad Quinn's Quest was mentioned earlier. Has Jeff reviewed Slug Blasters? No, I have not. No, I have not. Troy Cornelson is also, it's 42. Thank you. That's close, right? 24, 42. But God, when was the last time I actually listened to? Because, of course, I've read the books. It's got to be probably about 15 years since I listened to Hitchhiker's Guide. Both the original radio shows and the audiobooks. So Chris Leonard says they'd like to see some cool reviews of RPG accessories like fold-out maps, books, and such items. I think many of those are small creators of game products, a category that gets overlooked in general. Joe Bug says, you're welcome. Okay, so here's the last thing I'm going to wrap up with. Hold on. I need to wet me whistle. Oh, before I tackle the last thing. So remember I was talking about two companies I wasn't going to cover anymore, or one I wasn't, one I may not. Somebody had left a comment saying, so you're not going to cover Cobalt Press anymore? It's like, I didn't say that. I was like, how in the world did somebody get that out of it? Yeah, Cobalt Press, Tales of the Valiant is their game, but Steamforged Games licensed Tales of the Valiant to make a starter set. I was like, what the? I was like, no. Cobalt Press has something in the mail coming to me right this minute. So, so no, if you were thinking it's Cobalt Press, no, it's not. And the other company looks like we're gonna get things moving along. So that's why I didn't want to mention them yesterday. Troy Cornelson asks, is that booze in a Shasta bottle? Okay, so for one, it's not Shasta. It is the black bottle of diet soda from Walmart, Sam's Club, whatever it is. Because I can never find Diet Right anymore. And this is the closest to Diet Right. Dan says Adam Poots Games is another small creator with a wildly successful Kickstarter from way, way back. That name rings a bell. And W. Ford says someone should make a Hitchhiker's RPG. Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. I think it's probably pretty tough to convince the Douglas Adams estate. I think that would probably be one of the problems. Okay, so this kind of is in reference to what Chris Lundgren was asking too about seeing cool reviews of other things. And actually, it's kind of funny because the creator of Crown and Skull, I believe is the name of it, I know him from Index Card Role-Playing Game. So I'd mentioned on X today that, yes, I am no longer going to share news from Steamforged Games. And that was going to be it. You know, it was sort of like, well, you know, I've requested these review copies. I even sent an email why it would probably be in your best interest to send me the starter set for Tales of the Valiant, because I cover so much Cobalt Press stuff. People are going to expect to see it. Whatever. So somebody had commented, and I had also commented. I said, well, you know, you got to realize I don't run out and buy stuff, because who the hell can afford doing that and operate an outlet unless you're somebody who's got 75,000 subscribers and every one of your videos is getting 100,000 views, right? Most of us, we don't have that. So I got a comment from the creator of Index Card Role-Playing Game And it said something along the lines of, well, I give far more credence to a review from a paid product than one that was received as a review copy. Yeah, words to that effect. So I wrote back and I said, well, lots of luck finding an outlet that's going to go out and buy every single item that they review, especially if they're not someone who charges for reviews. And I said, I received a review copy of Index Card Role-Playing Game, and I gave it a great review. Are you saying that wasn't legit? So he thought I was being like nastier than what was meant. Of course, it's X, right? You only got so many characters to try to squeeze things in. And I don't know about you, but I'll sit there and I'll be like, all right, so figuring this out. And then you're like, okay, this is what I want to say. And then you look and you're like, oh shit, now I got to get rid of 17 characters. Because I'm not giving Elon Musk any money. So anyway, so I was like, oh, no reason to holler. And I wrote him back. I said, no, I'm not trying to holler. I said, I'm not yelling at you, because it wasn't all caps or anything like that. And I said, but as someone who's covered the hobby I'm in my 15th year and never charged a creator or publisher for a review, I kind of take issue when somebody like insinuates that the review I've done from a copy that was given to me is any less viable than a review from someone who paid for it. That was it. I mean, that was because that's true. I am, I see people all the time. Oh, well, you got it for free. So it's like, oh, really? I said, so I see people all the time. They're like, oh, well, that guy got it for free. So I wouldn't believe anything he says. Really? You mean on the review that I gave a 7 out of 10 and said, I like this, not so keen on that? Yeah, because I got it for free. Anyway, like I said, a little. So you got to keep in mind, I can only review stuff that gets sent to me. That is it. On occasion, people have said, hey, I want to make a donation through PayPal. I'd like you to buy XYZ because I'd like to see coverage of it. But that is very, very rare. So, I'd love to share reviews of like Traveler stuff and Paranoia stuff and Monte Cook Games stuff. I'd love to share reviews of tons of stuff. It's just, for one, I'm not real keen on reaching out to companies. Be like, oh, hey, I'd love to. It's like, I think by now it'd be like, oh, well, we'd like Jeff to review whatever, right? Because I get emails like that from people all the time. Hey, Jeff, I'd like you to review XYZ. Where would I send it? That kind of stuff. So the Madman says, sure, Jeff, you get it for free, but you put a lot of work into the show. So is it really free? No, not at all. Think of the equipment I've bought over the years. One day I might actually tell you folks exactly how much I pull in a month doing this. And I guarantee 99.9% of you would sit there and look dumbfounded and be like, why bother? What the hell's wrong with you? So there you have it. So unfortunately, if I'm not reviewing stuff you'd like to see, you telling me what you'd like to see reviewed isn't going to help. So I'm just letting you know. Seems my Omnic popped on in to chat with us as I'm about to wrap up. All right. So This weekend is Wrath and Glory weekend. So be sure to tune in. I have 3 different reviews of Warhammer 40K Wrath and Glory releases from my friends over at Cubicle 7 Games. I will be sharing reviews of, and yes, I got these for free. So, you know, these reviews won't mean anything. And then next week, I am probably going to start sprinkling some reviews for the Hudson and Brand, which you may recall I did a first look video, a live first look at the core supplement for Hudson and Brand. It is for Gaslight Age Call of Cthulhu, not necessarily Cthulhu by Gaslight, the new one that came out. It's really just 7th edition Call of Cthulhu that it's built for. So I've got the core book. I've got some adventures. So I will be sprinkling in some reviews of those next week. So I would say Monday, you might want to take a peek. And if you are interested in Hudson and Brand, I am going to share my review. Joseph Purdy, what if a review is done from a product that contributed for free? However, there's a request by the publisher to douse the product in lighter fluid and set it on fire at the end of the review. The reality is there have been times, not recently, but there were a few games early on in the Gaming Gang that I would have taken out and burned, like Tom Bassel has done with like destroying games that were awful. I never did something like that simply because I thought that was pretty disrespectful, even though I thought the games were steaming piles of shit. But still, something else that you might want to keep in mind, I don't think I mentioned this. If you don't see a review video of something 6 months after I've done a first look, it's usually an indication that I didn't care for it, and I let the publisher know. Sometimes I've let publishers know that they're looking at like a 6.5, which is actually it's a fine score. It's just more like, you know, this release is more for a certain sort of gamer than, you know, something that's, wow, it's everybody's going to love this. That's kind of, and they're like, nope, no, forget it. I don't want the review. It's like, okay, good catch. All right. All right. So Robert Reynolds says, thanks for your labor of love. Well, I mainly do this because it fits into the schedule I have to keep. John Dahl says, if your game is steaming, it is reasonable to be alarmed. Well, I got to say, there were some negative reviews we did. Elliot did a couple that really pissed the publisher off. And it was like, seriously? Just like Greater Than Games was in the news recently, and I reviewed their first edition of Sentinels of the Multiverse, and I gave it a negative review because there was something, because, you know, it's card-based and stuff like that. We were taking out one of the villains, and a certain situation arose, and it was impossible to defeat the villain. And it was like, what the? And we were looking over the rules like, no, we're doing this right. We're doing this right. And it was like, what the hell? So not something that was going to happen all the time, but it just happened to be a card combination that was on the table for the villain that was beating down the heroes. So Game Cat says, you get clicks and eyeballs, burn a game on every show. All right, everybody. That's it for this time out. Super long show. Well, we're going to end up over 2 hours. But if you were watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, bigger thank you. Because not only are you keeping me company, you're also keeping each other company while I'm sharing the day's news or rambling on about something, which I do frequently. But I know a lot of folks out there, you don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Thank you for taking time out to watch any of the over 2,200 videos here on the channel. And of course, if you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell. We'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central. Also let you know when I share other videos, such as this weekend's Wrath and Glory weekend, where I'll be featuring 3 reviews of Cubicle 7 Games Warhammer 40K Wrath and Glory releases. If you'd like to support the Gaming Gang, we do have a Patreon. You can find that link down in the show notes. If you'd like to just make a one-time donation in support, there's also a PayPal link down there. And of course, if you'd like to hang with the gang, we do have a Discord server, and you will find that invite link also in the show notes. A lot of stuff down in the show notes. All right. Of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit gaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find here on YouTube. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Thank you very much for watching. Everybody enjoy the rest of your morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. Have a great rest of their week. Great weekend. I will be back on Tuesday. I'll hope to see you then. And of course, as always, I certainly also hope all of you get an opportunity to play plenty of great games with your gang